Have you ever felt like you're crushing it in one part of your life but barely holding it together in another? Like you're patient and gracious at work but short-tempered at home? Or maybe the other way around? If that's you, you're not alone. And today, we're going to fix that. Welcome to Goals and Grace, the podcast for accomplished women who are ready to align their ambition with faith and step into their highest potential. I'm Reverend Juliet Spencer, a certified high-performance coach and former pastor, and I'm here to help you break free from imposter syndrome, embrace gratitude, and lead with clarity, purpose, and peace. Each week, I'll share faith-filled encouragement, personal stories, and proven strategies from high-performance habits, as well as from my own coaching program called the Purpose and Peace Pathway, to help you achieve success without apology. You'll walk away with tools to lead boldly, live intentionally, and honor the calling on your life. Let's step into our callings together. Don't forget to follow the podcast and share it with a friend who's ready to grow. In episode 2, we talked about finding clarity in your values and purpose. Today, we're taking it a step further. We're talking about how to bring that clarity into your daily life, how to show up as your best self in the moments that matter most. Today, we're diving into one of the most important and powerful questions you can ask yourself in any situation. And believe it or not, it's as simple as this. How do I want to show up? This question can truly be a game changer. It can help you navigate challenges with grace, build better relationships, and achieve greater success, whether at work, at home, in your spiritual walk, or all of the above. By the end of this episode, you'll have actionable strategies to make this question part of your daily mindset. Plus, I'll share real-life examples to help you see how transformative this really can be. So let's dive in with where else? The question, how do I want to show up? At first glance, I know it sounds simple, but its impact is life-changing. Because when you ask yourself this question, you're shifting from a reactive mindset to an intentional one. Instead of letting situations control you, you decide how and who you'll be in the moment. You get control. When you ask yourself, how do I want to show up, you're not just deciding how to handle things in a single moment. You're shaping your character. You're deciding who you'll be not just today, but over time. And that's what creates a life of integrity and impact. And it goes even further than that. When you ask yourself, how do I want to show up, you're aligning your actions with your values. And that alignment, that congruence, is what creates true confidence and peace. Because when you're living in alignment with your best self, you're not just reacting to life, you're leading it. Here's the thing. We often show up on autopilot, don't we? We let our emotions, stress, or exhaustion take the driver's seat. You have a tough day at work and snap at your kids when you get home. You don't mean to do it, but your tone of voice is harsher than you wish that it were. You just want some peace and quiet, and they want your attention now, because that's how kids are. You're nervous about a big presentation, so you over-prepare, but end up micromanaging your team. You usually trust them to do their jobs. You can practically feel them rolling their eyes or hear them sighing. No one likes to be micromanaged, but the stakes are high, and you are some kind of stressed. So before you know it, you're telling them for the 15th time what to do. Or maybe you're dealing with a difficult client who has sent you a demanding email for the 6th day in a row, and now you're rolling your eyes. So when the call comes in and it's from them, you react. You lose your temper, leaving you frustrated and them unimpressed. Does this sound familiar? Well, let me tell you, it's easy to do. If we're not emotionally and mentally prepared, we react. When you snap at your kids after a long day, it's not just about the moment, it's about the guilt that lingers afterwards. And when you micromanage your team, it's not just about the eye rolls, it's about the trust you're chipping away at. And when you lose your temper with a client, it's not just about the frustration, it's about the missed opportunity to build a stronger relationship. I get it. I absolutely get it. When my kids were young and I was tired after a long day or a long week at work, or irritated with my husband, more than once my tone of voice was much harsher than it needed to be with my kids. And as soon as it left my mouth, that unpleasant tone, I knew what I'd done. I would apologize, of course, but that didn't make it okay. When I learned to ask myself the one question, how do I want to show up? Everything changed. I stopped letting my exhaustion dictate my tone. I started pausing, breathing, and choosing to respond with love and patience. And let me tell you, it wasn't just better for them, it was better for me. Because every time I showed up as my best self, as opposed to someone I wasn't particularly proud of, but every time I showed up as my best self, I felt proud as a mom, as the mom I was becoming. That's the power of this question. As I would come to learn, successful people don't leave their responses to chance. They don't allow their emotions in the moment to dictate how they'll behave. In other words, they do the work so that they're not going through life in a reactive state. And they start by setting clear intentions. This question isn't just for the big moments of life. It's for everyday ones. It's for the mornings when you're rushing out the door. It's for the meetings that feel like a waste of time. It's for the evenings when you're tired and your family needs you. The more you ask yourself, how do I want to show up and who do I want to be, the more it becomes second nature. And that's when the magic happens. When you start leading your life with intention, not just reacting to it, it's a beautiful thing. Here's an example. Let's say you're heading into a work meeting that you know will be tense. Instead of dreading it or bracing for conflict, what would it look like if before you even got to work, you mentally visualized walking through the door and you asked yourself, how do I want to show up as I cross that threshold? Do I want to be calm and solution-focused or defensive and reactionary? Do I want to hold my head high and my shoulders down? Or let the tension in my body force my shoulders up to my ears? Do I want to breathe deeply right before I step into the room and silently pray for each member who will be in attendance? Who do I want to be? And how do I want to show up? Another example, imagine you're exhausted after a long day and you come home to your spouse who immediately starts asking you about the errands that you forgot to run. But you can hardly hear him because the kids are fighting over the remote. It only takes you a nanosecond to see that reacting negatively, raising your voice, and getting defensive won't do you or them any favors. You'll only add to the chaos. And so instead of reacting with frustration, you pause at the door and you think, how do I want to show up? This question helps you bring your best self into every scenario, not just the easy ones. But asking this question assumes something really important. It assumes that you've taken the time to define your best self. What does being your best actually mean to you? It's different for everyone, but it's always rooted in your core values. You know, I've never met anyone who says, I value being a jerk, or I want to create chaos for the people around me so that I'll have no friends and people will hate to see me coming. And yet, sometimes we act like that's exactly what we believe. Why? Because it's easy to operate from stress or unresolved emotions and not from our values. People who thrive at work and in their relationships take time to reflect on their values, and then they use those values as a guide. I have a great example from one of my coaching clients. She realized that she valued connection and joy, and yet she rarely let her playful side show at work. With her husband and kids and close circle of friends, she laughed all the time. And more importantly, she was funny. And she knew she was funny. But when we discussed what she valued most about herself, the light bulb went off, and she realized that she was nice at the office. She could laugh at a joke now and then, and her staff would even say that she was approachable, but she wasn't really fun, much less funny. Not even when they were all standing around in the break room over cups of coffee. She realized that she was keeping the best part of herself from the people she spent more time with during the week than her own family. By identifying this mismatch, she began intentionally to show up as someone who could laugh and connect to her team throughout her workday. Before she gained clarity, she was nice at work, but she wasn't really herself. She kept her playful, funny side hidden, thinking that it wasn't professional. But once she asked herself, how do I want to show up? Everything changed. She started bringing her full personality to the office. She laughed with her team, connected with them on a deeper level. And not only did it make her job more enjoyable for herself, but it also reduced stress and improved morale for everyone on her team. And you know what? What worked for her will work for you. Think of a time when you were at your best. Maybe you were tempted to have a bad reaction or to show up as someone less than your ideal, but you didn't. You instead showed up as the best version of who you are. Looking at that situation, you can honestly say that it makes you proud. What qualities were you embodying? What did you experience? Why did that feel so good afterwards and probably during as well? Think about those qualities and strive to adopt them every day. Here's a practical exercise. Write down 3 words that describe your best self. For example, kind, courageous, and focused. Keep those words somewhere visible, like on your desk or phone, and revisit them before a challenging situation. In fact, I actually recommend that you visit them every single day more than once. I have a client whose 3 words are studious, uplifting, and accomplished. More than once, he shared with me the difference it makes in how he thinks and what he does. Why? Because he looks at them at least every morning and every night. He asks himself before he goes to bed, where was I studious today? Did I show up with intentionality? Did I encourage and uplift anyone? And did I do what needed to be done and was beneficial to someone else? Those 3 words are meaningful, of course, but they're actually useful because he takes time to hold them up as a guidepost for his day every day. Here's where it gets real. It's not enough to define your best self. You also need to take ownership of your reactions. Think about it. How often do we catch ourselves saying, they made me so mad? Or, I wouldn't have acted like that if they hadn't done X, Y, or Z. It's natural, but the reality is no one can make you act out of character. You choose your response. Let's break this down with a few examples. Imagine you're driving and someone cuts you off. Your gut reaction is anger. Maybe your heart races and you feel the urge to honk your horn, yell, and maybe make a not so pleasant gesture. Or perhaps you're tempted to call and vent to a friend for the next 10 minutes. But what happens when you pause and ask yourself, is this reaction aligned with how I want to be? The kind of person I want to be? Is this really how I want to show up? Chances are you'll realize that letting the situation ruin your mood or your day doesn't serve you. The pause creates space for you to make a better choice. Or think about a situation at work. A coworker sends an email that feels passive-aggressive, and your immediate instinct is to fire off a snarky reply, or maybe to vent to another colleague. But before hitting send, what if you paused and thought, What response reflects the person I want to be? Would your best self hit reply all with sarcasm? Probably not. It's not easy to own our reactions because we're wired to respond in the moment. But here's where real growth happens. Taking a breath and creating that pause just before you react allows you to choose your reaction. Here's a quick tool you can use. When you feel triggered, whether by a person, a situation, or just even your own stress, take a deep breath. Inhale it for 4 seconds, hold it for 4, and exhale for 4. As you do this, silently ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be right now? That simple breathing exercise and reflection can shift everything. And if going through it one time doesn't work, give yourself permission to go through it as many times as it takes. Let me share a story. A father struggled with his teenage daughter. She could push his buttons better than anybody, and she did it constantly. She talked back, ignored curfews, and was glued to her phone during family dinners. His default reaction was to yell, which only escalated the situation. But when he started practicing this pause, he saw a difference. The next time his daughter snapped at him, instead of reacting with anger, he took a breath, reminded himself of his values, which were kindness and patience, and calmly said, "Let's visit this conversation when we're both ready to listen." And he said it in a way that was not sarcastic and that truly made space for her as well as for him. Not only did it de-escalate the tension, but it also set a healthier tone for their relationship. She was so shocked and taken aback, she even apologized. Obviously, they still had work to do, but the environment began to shift when he chose to show up as his best self. Owning your reactions isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about recognizing them, pausing, and choosing a response that reflects who you want to be. The more you practice, the easier it gets. And here's the amazing part. When you consistently own your reactions, you'll start to notice how others react to you differently. You'll be perceived as the calm one in the storm, and people will look to you as a steady presence. Remember, it's not about perfection. We all have moments where we fall short. But each time you pause and choose to act in alignment with your values, you're building a stronger, more intentional version of who you are. Here's my challenge for you. The next time you feel triggered, whether it's by that rude email, a tough conversation, or even your own stress, pause and take a breath. Asking yourself, is this how I want to be? Write that question down and put it on a sticky note. Make it your mantra, because the more you practice, the more you'll train yourself to respond with intention instead of reacting on autopilot. Now finally, let's talk about control. High performers understand this fundamental truth. You cannot control other people. I know it's frustrating, but stick with me. This realization is incredibly freeing. Think about how much energy we waste trying to manage how other people think or feel or act. Maybe it's a colleague who isn't pulling their own weight on a project, or a family member who keeps making decisions you don't agree with, or even a stranger on the internet who feels morally obligated to tell you how wrong you are about everything. The reality is you can't fix other people. You can't make them think differently, and you can't force them to behave the way you want. And the harder we try, the more we're likely to end up drained, frustrated, and resentful. Here's the freeing part. While you can't control others, you can control yourself. Let me repeat that. You have full control over how you respond, even when you can't control somebody else. For instance, if someone at work isn't meeting your expectations, what's your instinct? Maybe it's to micromanage them or to become overly critical. But what if instead you paused and asked, how can I show up in a way that is not only my best self, but that helps the situation? This could mean leading by example, offering constructive support, or at times, much harder, letting go of the need to intervene altogether. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you check out or become passive. It means you focus your energy on what's within your control, your actions, your mindset, and your attitude. And here's where faith comes in. When you release control over others, you're not leaving things to chaos, you're entrusting them to God. It's saying, Lord, I've done what I can. Now I'm trusting you to do what only you can. And if you choose not to intervene, I'm trusting you to get me through it with peace of mind and peace of spirit. So next time you feel the urge to control someone else's action, stop and reflect. Ask yourself, what's really driving this? Am I operating from fear, pride, or a desire to look good? How can I shift my focus to showing up in alignment with my values and faith? Is there something I need to do to remove myself from the situation? Can I listen with curiosity and not judgment? When you release control over others, you're not giving up. You're giving it to God. You're saying, Lord, I trust you to guide this situation, and I trust you to give me the strength I need to show up as my best. That's not weakness, it's courage. It's faith in action, and it's one of the most freeing decisions you can make. And I'll let you in on a secret. When I find myself in a situation where I need to remain calm, where I need to rise to the occasion as the best version of who I can be, only I'm feeling especially tense, I cross my ring fingers over my little fingers hard. I won't lie, it's very unpleasant, which is exactly why I do it. It is a tangible reminder to breathe, to say a quick prayer, and to trust that God will give me the strength to make myself and Jesus proud. So let's wrap up with some practical steps to apply this question in your life. Number 1, define your best self. Write down 3 words that describe you when you really are at your best. Keep them visible and visit them daily. Start your day with intention. Number 2, ask, how do I want to show up today? Visualize yourself handling challenges with grace and confidence. And if you know that you're going to be experiencing a situation that is more than likely going to cause you stress, then imagine yourself stepping into that situation. Picture yourself doing so as the best version of you. How are you behaving? How are you handling yourself? Well, that's how you can do it. Number 3, pause before reacting. When you feel triggered, take a deep breath and ask, is this response aligned with who I want to be? And 4, release control. Focus on being your best self, not controlling others. Trust God with the rest. And 5, consider crossing your fingers in an uncomfortable way. Trust me, it's a great reminder that growth is not always easy. It's sometimes painful, but it's always worth it. The next time you feel triggered, whether it's by a rude email, a tough conversation, or even your own stress, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, is this reaction aligned with how I want to show up? Because the more you practice this, the more you'll train yourself to respond with intention instead of reacting on autopilot. Well, thanks for joining me today. If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone else who needs the reminder. And remember, you always have the power to decide how you'll show up. So let's make it count. Until next time, God bless.